All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the first Reacher podcast. Wanted to bring on a special VIP here, Becca Harrington, head of creative at Amie. For those of you who don't know, Amie holds a special place in my heart. Super great friends with their founder, Julia. They're doing awesome things, but my intro wouldn't put them to justice. So, Becca, if you wouldn't mind just like telling us a little bit about Amie and yourself and what you're doing over there.
Hi everyone, I'm Becca. I'm the head of creative at Amie. I oversee content strategy for all of our clients, as well as manage the creative department. So I have my hands in a lot of different buckets. I'm constantly doing a lot of different things, but all on the creative side.
Yeah, and I think one thing that Julia mentioned about Ami is like you guys have like a very specific value proposition. Do you mind just diving a bit more deeply into what kind of agency you guys are?
Yes, so we specialize in marketing for TikTok, specifically for beauty brands at Sephora and Ulta. And we really value just delivering, top tier content to our clients. I feel like we've always been content first. And so the creative department is actually the largest department within our agency. And it really is our bread and butter. And so we really hold ourselves accountable for creating, the best content that we possibly can for our clients.
Yeah. And for us in like the TikTok shop space, the reason why we wanted to bring on Becca first is because she's like the real expert at filming content. I think a lot of us in e-commerce, we like to go super granular into like all the KPIs, map out our marketing funnel, and just really optimize it. These are the kind of words that they make fun of me for it to me when I'm talking about so on. You're talking about scope creep, KPI, like just shut up. It's not actually what moves the needle in terms of TikTok content. One thing Julia mentioned to me that was really interesting about like the whole staff is that all of you guys actually create content yourselves for the
Yep.
clients, but also a lot of you guys have done media buying as well. And so I find that super interesting because it's very rare that you meet creatives who understand what it looks like just creating the creative, planning it and doing account management with the client, and then also being at the end of it, serving ads behind that creative, looking at the results, and then taking it back to the beginning and optimizing it. So I think that's where Ambi really shines. They do TikTok shop as well, but just with the creative they put out there on TikTok, having strategists who've been end to end just takes their content to the next level.
Yeah,
So,
that's actually how Julia discovered me. I was a content creator. I was fresh out of college, I couldn't get hired by anyone because I didn't have like 7 years of experience. But Julia found me. She saw the content that I created, and then she took a chance on me, which I'm forever grateful for. I actually started as an intern here and then just worked my way up. But I think it's really, really, really important to, first of all, like know how to make content yourself if you're briefing other people to make content. Because it's not as easy as it looks to, put yourself behind the camera and create a piece of content that not only performs really well for a client, but also potentially converts too. That is why all of us on the team are certified media buyers, because we have to know like all of these different aspects of like how the content works, how it performs behind the scenes, what gets people to like want to purchase a product. There's so many different things that goes into creating content that you don't necessarily think of if you're not a content creator.
yeah, I'm excited to dive into all of that because like Becca, I suck at creating content. Like I
It's
tried.
hard.
It's so hard. Like I tried to make a few TikToks and I broke like 500 video views and I was like so excited. Obviously, like I
Yep.
bought the account from someone, so I had all the followers ready to go.
Love it.
And then at my previous job, they actually created an AI clone of me that outperformed me, like with a script. And then I was like, oh my god, like I suck at creating
No.
content. Everything that I thought took me to these 500 video
Practice
views.
makes perfect. Like I sometimes look at the content that I created when I first started awful. It's horrible. It's terrible. But there's so many things that I've learned throughout the years where it's like so true when they say like practice makes perfect for sure.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear about that. I mean, I want to drill back into like how you got into Amie. So, I know you didn't like explicitly mention it, but you're
Mhm.
one of the first employees ever at Amie and one of
It
Julia's
was.
first hires ever, right? So,
Yes.
what I'd like to hear is like walk me through like what you were feeling and like what that process looked like coming in from like specifically creating content as a content creator, journey into Amie, journey meeting Julia, like what did that look like?
Definitely. So, ever since I was like 3 years old, I always knew I wanted to go into the beauty space. I was just always obsessed with it. I actually went to school. I went to FITM, Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, and I studied beauty marketing there. I got my bachelor's degree. So I knew that I wanted to be in beauty and I knew that I wanted to be on the like more business aspect side of things. I didn't want to be like a makeup artist. Even though I enjoyed doing it, I was always very intrigued by the business aspect. So after I got my bachelor's degree, it was really, really difficult to find a job. I didn't know that I wanted to go into social media until I did an internship when I was in school and kind of like fell in love with it because it allowed me to be creative, which is something that I thrive in. I've always been a very creative person. Um, but yeah, it was super difficult to get a job. I probably applied to like 500 companies. I'm not even kidding. And like I couldn't land anything. It was a very difficult time too because it was COVID. Um, so many things going on in the world. But I met Julia through a mutual friend of ours. Um, she was hiring for an intern. I was just looking for anything, honestly, internship, part-time job, anything. And so I met with her, and she already saw like all of the content that I was creating at the time on my page. And she kind of started out the call by saying like, "Oh, I love all the content that you create. Your page is so beautiful. By the way, you're hired." She started out our interview like that. And it was like, I was like fully prepped for like, a legit interview. I was doing so many interviews at the time. All of them were very similar, except the one with Julia, where she just told me, like, oh, by the way, you're hired. And I was like, okay, cool. And like barely even did an interview process. It was very conversational, super chill. It was really exciting. It was very brand new to her agency. Like she only had hired Rio, our COO at the time, and then I was actually the next hire. So I didn't really know too much about the agency, and I also felt like I was kind of taking a chance as well because I was actually, interviewing for like these really big brands like Anastasia Beverly Hills and Benefit Cosmetics, and like I thought I wanted to be in one of those big brands. So like I felt like I was also taking a chance, working for an agency that wasn't very established quite yet. But I was just really excited for the opportunity and was just gonna take whatever chance I could get. And I started out literally just creating content here and then doing community engagement, so like responding to DMs and comments and tagged videos and all of that good stuff on the clients that we had at the time. That was a little over 3 years ago, and we've just skyrocketed from then. Every few months we would get a new client. I eventually became a creative account manager, where I was managing the accounts, and I was one of the girls who kind of like created that role, and all of our processes. And then after that, once we got a few more girls on the team, I became senior creative account manager. So then I started managing, which is actually something I've
So
never
pause.
done before.
Pause real quick.
Uh-huh.
Because I want to drill down just into the more early days real quick. So
Yeah.
incredible journey, right? Employee number two at Amie. I don't know if Julia told you, but she told me about your interview process, and she was just like, "Oh my god." In like the first few minutes, I just knew Becca was like the person I was gonna hire, like second employee at the company, like no question in mind. So super high, like vouches for you a lot. I am curious, kind of starting at the content creator and then going into account management, right? Like, what did your like what did your profile look like in terms of the kinds of content you created? Like, what do you think it was that like really caught Julia's eye, for your style and the way you film specifically?
It's kind of funny. So back then, I was creating more like, like editorial kind of crazy makeup looks. That was just like the thing at the time. I think it was like during COVID, and a lot of people just didn't really have anything better to do than to like, sit down, just make like these crazy makeup looks and film themselves and put it on the TikTok platform. It was just like the trend at the time. And I'm actually a certified makeup artist, so I know how to do makeup. I became a certified makeup artist when I was 17. So I know how to apply it and also, create the content, film it as I'm doing it. So that's kind of content I was creating. And I think um, it's pretty rare to find someone that is able to create these crazy looks and also, post it on social media. So I think that kind of intrigued her, and a lot of our brands were looking for that specific style at the time. And then over the years, I don't really do it as much. It's not necessarily something that's, you know, trending or performing on the platform anymore. My style has definitely evolved throughout the years, but I think that's probably what like caught her eyes. I was kind of doing something not a lot of people could do at the time.
Okay. So kind of like
Hmm.
breaking the traditional barriers, right? Like getting a
Hmm.
little out of the box, like putting yourself out there. She sort of
Yeah.
was seeing that and was like, oh, like these are leading indicators of like someone who's like really bold and like kind of
Hmm.
experimenting with a lot of new things, likes to take risks. And like just out of curiosity, right? Like for a guy like me who like doesn't know what like the editorial makeup styles like are, like in my head I'm imagining like I don't know, Instagram reels of like people decorating themselves up as like crazy characters out of movies. You know what I mean? Am I like
Yeah.
off, or like what did that style like kind of look like if you were to describe it to me?
It's kind of like Halloween makeup, like
Okay.
24/7. Halloween makeup even in July.
So like
That's
blood
kind
coming
of
out of like the
maybe
face type
maybe not
thing, or
scary, but like think about
hmm.
like maybe like butterflies and fairies. Like people were doing like all
Okay.
these crazy colors. I remember there was a trend where it was like under eye rainbow makeup where you like make your under eye look like it's a rainbow. So it's just, experimenting with crazy colors and just doing like basically like art on your face, kind of.
Interesting. Okay. That
Yeah.
makes sense. And I
Hmm.
guess you're saying that these bigger beauty brands were also looking for things like that. Could you like dive into like why that might be appealing for like I know you guys work with some like really big brands, right? Like
Hmm.
why would they be looking, or I guess back then, why would they be looking for things like this?
At the time, we had a few makeup brands, who their founders are makeup artists themselves. And I think they really wanted to have, creators who are makeup artists on their accounts, to kind of just like tie everything in. So I think that's what was probably interesting to them at the time. And of course, the seasonal, like the Halloween looks, they want someone to be able to do some Halloween looks on their accounts, and just show all the different ways that you can apply the makeup.
Got it. Interesting. Okay. And as you're onboarding onto Amie, right? Like I know the transition from being a content creator to an account manager is like kind of a learning curve, right?
For
From my
sure.
understanding, an account manager has to also do a lot of things like project management, come up
Yeah.
with the deliverables, present them, get feedback, reiterate, right? It's like very like project management soft skills, strategic soft skills, right? But when you're a content creator, you can kind of like set your own schedule and pick the projects you want to do, right? And sort
Yeah.
of curate your own lifestyle. For you coming in as a content creator into your first job, like what was that transition like, coming into like a formal company and trying to serve these clients like curated content against their guidelines?
Looking back, I'm actually so thankful that I didn't land one of these other jobs at, the companies I was applying for, because I was applying for jobs that said they were entry level, but in reality, they really wanted someone to come on, like, already know all of these things. And I say I'm so thankful because entering a me, I was in a position where I was able to just like learn everything and grow slowly. So I learned everything from Julia. She really took me under her wing and we did every single process together. There was only 4 people on the team, and we would sit on these like really, really long meetings and do all of like the content briefs for all of our clients together. I mean, at the time we only had like about 4 clients, so it was a lot easier than hopping on a call and doing it all together than it would be now. Um, but yeah, I was just able to absorb all of this information from her because she was doing it a lot longer than I was. And I'm just so thankful that I was like put in a position where I could like learn rather than be like thrown in the deep end and, swim. So I think there's just like probably like a year long where I was just like learning all of these tips and tricks, learning how to brief content, learning how to speak to clients. I wasn't really client facing before that, I was fresh out of college, learning how to host meetings, just learning all of these things. So it was a pretty slow process. And I think if I just went from content creator to creative account manager, it would have been really scary. But there was like this like really slow process of just like learning all of the different things it takes to, manage clients' accounts and not only create content for yourself, but like brief other people to create it too.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And it's pretty cool that like Julia like got to walk you through that. I know for
Hmm.
me, like I've been in situations where I've just been thrown into the deep end and like,
Yeah.
I'm responsible for like a client churning and like that's my learning lesson.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's sick that you got that ramp up experience there. I am curious, as you were starting to like learn, formalize, and sort of like I guess as we would say in tech, like productize like your creativeness. Like can you just walk me through like what that looked like what goes into like turning a very creative like non-scripted like TikTok video into like something you standardize and like repeat to a certain extent across client projects?
Definitely. Very good question. It's all about balance and it's all about testing and learning. So we're constantly, putting content out there. We don't know if it's gonna stick or not. I think being a content creator and being in the creative industry, you kind of have to be a little bit risky sometimes. But of course, you have to, balance all of these things. You have to balance what the client wants. You have to balance, what you think is going to perform well. You have to balance what paid team is asking for. So it's definitely all about balance, and it's a lot easier said than done to do that. And it's about learnings too. So we are all about analytics here, and we pay really, really, really close attention to what actually performs well and what doesn't. And we kind of end up like weeding out, the styles of content that don't typically perform well for clients and lean more into the content that does perform well. And then afterwards, when you find like this one piece of content that performs really well, there's a million different like ways you can like spin it and, replicate it, but make it its own piece. Um, does that answer your question?
No, 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 definitely. Yeah. It's a good high level overview. I guess I'd love to just focus on like the first part, right?
Hmm.
When you're putting together a test or you're planning out a shoot, like what are the things you're thinking about and like how would you go about like explaining that process to I guess like a tech bro like me who has
Hmm.
no, content experience?
I think there's a lot of prep work behind it. We do a lot of like internal brainstorm sessions with each other. We all work extremely closely together. The creative department works really closely with the TikTok shop department and the ads and affiliate and like all of these different things. So we're very intertwined and we're constantly hopping on calls and discussing the overall strategy for whatever account we're discussing, as well as meeting with the client too and making sure, they're feeling heard and whatever they want to see on the platform is also being implicated into the strategy. So it's a ton of prep work that we're doing. We're also looking at like the analytics, what is performing, what isn't performing well. We come up with, campaign decks where we present it to the client. So it's very, very collaborative, presenting all of our ideas, taking their feedback, and then diving deep into the actual content assignments themselves. Um, that process is very time consuming. We spend like majority of our time actually like briefing our creators to make the content for us. And
So I guess could you walk me through that process, like the
mhm,
briefing of the creators? I think just for context, especially in TikTok Shop, everyone's just trying to optimize their creative briefs all the time. Like it's
yeah.
all I hear about. It's like, oh, it's all in the creative brief, or go take the top 10 creatives from these creators and turn them into a creative brief. And like, for us, we're trying to do that with AI, right? And I know Julia and I have had discussions where she's like, there's no way you guys can outperform Becca, like, with AI. Like, she'll just crush you guys every time. And I'm like, okay, okay, all right, fine. So I was like, let me get Becca on here and get the secret sauce, right? So, like, if you're walking through, a marketer like me, right?
Mhm.
For me, the way I look at content briefs and the way I've seen it modularized for ads is like you've got your content style, you've got your hooks, you've got your selling points, and then you have like some basic do's and don'ts, brand guidelines, maybe a few like videography tips, right? I feel like for me, when I see this format served to creators, I don't see it translate downstream into the content that people are linking for inspiration. Like, what do you feel like people typically get wrong when they're trying to like serve these creative briefs to creators?
You know what? I actually think sometimes it comes down to the creator themselves. We do like extensive work on matching our creators that we have to clients that fit well with each other. Any creator that we have that we're like tagging on a certain client's account, we want to make sure their aesthetic, is very similar to that client. And when we're briefing them, TikTok is all about being relatable and organic and not advertising or scripted. So if you're giving a script or a brief to a creator that just doesn't feel natural to them, it's never going to hit on social media like you think it would. So, how we like to approach briefing is getting very personal with each creator. And we have like an insanely great relationship with all of our creators. We know them like the back of our hands. We're constantly in communication with them. Even though we have like over 100 creators, we're very personal with all of them. And we know their styles and we know their strengths and we know their weaknesses as well. So when I'm giving a brief to a creator, I want to make sure this brief matches the creator. And a lot of times, too, how we approach it is we tell them to, maybe it's a talking video. We tell them, like, what makes you excited about this product? Why do you like it? Like, how do you like using it? So it's not necessarily like giving them a script, like, all of these talking points and you have to hit each one. Like, I want to hear from them what they like about the product, and I want it to feel like this is a piece of content that they would personally post on their platform, on their TikTok account, on their Instagram account, whatever it may be. So I think getting, personal and relatable is always going to resonate really well on TikTok. And that all comes down to the brief itself.
It sounds like you guys are also talking to these creators and doing like some like pre-brief work,
For
right?
sure,
Like
yeah.
you're getting to know them as like a person. And I think like a lot of people might use like a software like Reacher where it's just like, oh, I'm gonna modularize and reach out to like 100,000 creators a month,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And maybe there's area for like us to improve or for a lot of e-commerce to improve because they're not getting to know the creator and they're missing like that sort of like UGC-esque area of the content, right? If this creator was mailed in the product themselves and like they went about and like posted it on their own like naturally based off of their experience, like what would they say? Like I feel like
Yeah.
maybe that's what's missing. I am curious, right? So let's say you're talking to like a room full of marketers who like doesn't do this. What advice would you give them to like, I know this is gonna sound crazy, just to like form good relationships with their creators? I feel like a lot of people just like don't know how to do this. Like they'll just be like, hey, do you want a gift card? Or like, thanks for your work. here's
Yeah.
more money, or here's more this. I feel like
Hmm.
that doesn't always equate to like true relationships with creators, but I could be wrong. I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think it's something that we've done that's just different from any other agency or brand that works with UGC creators specifically. I think, brands do a really good job at building relationships with their influencers, but when it comes to their UGC creators, maybe not so much. And we really pride ourselves on that relationship we have with our creators because they do so much for us that we want to make sure that they feel supported and taken care of. So a few things that we do that I feel like is a little bit different than maybe what other agencies or brands are doing is we actually host like creator trainings for all of our network of creators that we have. Because, they have their own platforms and they're trying to build themselves or their social media accounts. And we want to give them like all of the tips and tricks that we have because within the agency we're all creators, so if like I discover some sort of like tip that I want to share with the rest of them, like I'm not gatekeeping around here, like I want them to be as successful as I am, so we
Yeah,
host trainings for them, and then we also have our clients host trainings for our creators as well, so they can directly meet with the brands, and maybe they have some questions, um and they want to speak directly to the brand. So we not only like, have a good relationship with our creators, but we also make sure that they have a good relationship with our clients as well, because they're the ones, making this content for our clients.
interesting.
We,
So sorry to interrupt. I guess like
mhm,
with these trainings on TikTok Shop, everyone's hosting these like AMAs or biweekly office hours in their like discords and communities.
mhm,
So I don't know if you've heard too much about that. I think you guys do something similar to me, right? I
mhm.
am curious, when you're doing these creator trainings for your creators, like are you able to like walk me through like what like a ideal training session would look like? Like, is there any sort of like structure? Are there specific things that you find creators find useful in these trainings?
Definitely. So how we approach it is we always reach out to our creators to just kind of like take a poll and see when a majority of them are available to hop on like a Zoom call, so we can get as many of them on there as possible. And if, some of them aren't able to join, we always record it and send it out to them so they can watch it later on their own time. But it's usually someone from our team, whether it's like myself or Julia, or we also have a creative strategist on our team. She also hosts creator trainings, and we usually get pretty like specific on what we're talking about that day. Like you sometimes we'll do like a voiceover training, or we will do like talking on camera training. So it's usually pretty like nitty-gritty on like the subject we're talking about that day, and we have like this whole presentation deck of all the tips and tricks gathered from our internal team that we've learned, and we just, pass along our tips and tricks to the creators. And then we always, like make it very collaborative. So, sometimes there's creators that have their own tips and tricks, and we always encourage them to, shout it out during the meeting and talk about it. Or we'll ask them, like, does anyone know of like a really good mic? Has anyone been using like a really good mic that they really love? Because like I haven't been able to find one yet. Like which one are you guys using? Like what sounds like the most clear on camera and stuff like that. So we make it very collaborative. Um, Always like allow them to like ask questions and all of that good stuff. And then yeah, like I said, we'll always like send the recording to them afterwards, so they always have that footage to go back to when they're creating their next piece of content.
Interesting. Okay. And like, do you feel like creators even like these training sessions? Because I see a lot of creators like invited to like, Discords, office hours, and things like that, right? And like every single marketer like in the entire TikTok shop world is just like serving them more hooks and more angles. Like what do you think is like the core value for like these creators to even attend a session that Amie would host?
we know that these are very helpful and that our creators love it because the feedback we get is so amazing and positive. They're always saying like, "Thank you guys so much. This is so helpful." Or we have like this whole Discord chat with our all of our creators. So we can talk to them, they can talk to us, and they can talk amongst each other as well. So they're always giving us such positive feedback. And, at the end of the day, they're trying to grow as creators themselves. And I think like any tip or trick they can get is just extremely helpful because it's a very competitive industry. Like there's a ton of people that are trying to be content creators these days, and it's very, very difficult to stand out from the crowd and, make sure the clients are happy with the content and all of this good stuff. So it's really awesome to see all of these creators just like want to learn more and want to grow and expand their knowledge in this industry.
Got it. No, that makes sense. It is competitive. Like the creator economy is like growing so rapidly. And then obviously, for me being an AI, even boosting that growth like further, it's just getting like out of control.
Yeah.
I am curious, like, what do you feel like let's say brands who aren't doing this, right? Like what are the consequences of not having any creator training programs like for your creators? Like what would that look like in terms of implications, lack of performance and stuff for a B? Like
Mhm.
I'm just curious for the brands that aren't doing it right now, like why is it bad that they're not doing it?
I think I would say like don't be surprised if you get back content that you're not super satisfied with because, trying to tell the creators what you're looking for in a brief or via email, however you communicate with your creators, is a lot more difficult than it sounds. But when you can hop on a call with them and explain what you're talking about, or maybe even like, share your screen and pull up examples of like the kind of content you really like, the kind of content maybe you don't like, just for whatever reason, it's 10 times more impactful. So if you're not hosting trainings for your creators, definitely just I I would say like don't be surprised if you get that content that you're not super satisfied with.
Interesting. And I guess downstream, right? Because I know you guys are involved with like the paid media teams and the account strategy teams. What does that look like in terms of I guess performance with ads and things like that?
Definitely. Great question. I think that we spend so much time internally, discussing the account, discussing what's performing well, what's not performing well. We're always in communication with our clients, but a lot of times, the creator isn't getting this feedback because they're not on our internal team. And what we were realizing is that content that we were creating internally, like myself, I'm an internal creator, is what we like to call ourselves if we're on the internal team and we're also content creators. Our content was performing like extremely well, but we were noticing that some of our external creators' content was kind of falling behind. And what we realized is that we're having all of these discussions with the client, what they like. We're literally in Ads Manager seeing what's performing well, what's not performing well. And so we were gathering all of these learnings and growing as creators and, time over time producing better content. But our creators were falling behind because they weren't getting this information that we were discussing internally. And so we wanted to figure out a way to gather all of this information that we have and pass it over to our external creators who aren't in our internal calls, if that makes sense. And after we did so, after we started doing these creator trainings and, having the creators meet with our clients directly, like we saw just the same results as an internal creator versus an external creator.
Interesting. So I guess like are you saying that on these creator trainings you'll also give like them feedback on how their creative performed, like for the
Yep,
account?
definitely. Yeah.
Ah,
We will do it either on a call or We have like these monthly newsletters that go out where we, show all of the creators whose content performed the best that month, or, if a few videos went viral, we'll link them in there so everyone can see. And then of course, like maybe a client is like, "Oh my gosh, I love this piece so much." We'll give that feedback to the creator so they know that, the client's liking it, we're liking it. And same thing with content that maybe didn't perform well or content that the client didn't like. We'll tell our creators that, and they ask for it too. They always want to know, like, hey, like, if a client doesn't like something, I'd rather know so I don't replicate it next time. And I can, like, change my style in some sort of way because they always want to make sure, like, we're satisfied with their content as well as the client is too.
Interesting. I've actually like poked into so many brands, creator communities, and discords, and I haven't seen them just facilitating like the feedback loop on
Hmm.
their creative. Like it's always just like here are the next like tips and tricks, and like here's the
Yeah.
top creative of the week. But, like no one's actually going to recurring creator workshop attendees and being like, here's what's working for you, here's what's not. And if you do that like 5 to 6 times, like I imagine that's going to help with the creative
Yeah.
briefing, right? Like what works for that creator. You have more first party data too through those iterations across multiple brands and a V. Like
Mhm.
that also stacks up as well in multiple contexts. So, huh, that's interesting. I guess like just to play like devil's advocate, right? I would say most brands' concerns are, or I guess agencies and brands' concerns are, oh, this process like takes too much time. Like, oh, it's not like scalable. You know what I mean? For people who are sort of like still digging in their heels and not talking to their creators like that, what would you say to them to sort of convince them that there is a way to do this that doesn't like come at a huge opportunity cost for the rest of their business?
Great question. I think, like I said earlier, the most time-consuming thing that we do on the creative side is briefing because we rarely ever do reshoots here. We spend so much time with prepping our creators and, doing the briefing process, so much prep work before we receive the content to eliminate the amount of reshoots. But I think if I was like talking to a brand, that like didn't have that much time, I would just ask them like what their priorities are and what's most important to them. If they would rather do all this prep work to make sure the content that they receive is, exactly what they were expecting, or if they're okay, like with reshoots. But with that, a lot of times when you're working with creators, they charge extra if you ask them to do a reshoot. So I think it just comes down to like what your priorities are and if content is something that's super important to you and you want it to perform well, then I think, at the end of the day, like if if you want something to perform well, it's going to take a little bit of time to perfect it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds like there's like a true creator cost of like reshoots, and then also like a deliverables cost of like it will take longer for your content to arrive that you want in your exact way, right? So like
Yes.
in the long run, the time spent up front sort of evens out to a more efficient process over time where you have creators that get better and better at creating content because you've invested up front. I think like that phenomenon is like where I hear like a lot of other heads or directors miss that you're getting right. Is like maybe we need to take a loss on our short-term deliverables or our short-term like project requirements right now to like invest into this specific motion of like creator briefing so that in the long run it's performing 3 times more efficiently and we're getting way more out of every creator. I guess
Yeah.
that like sounds bad. That sounds like very like marketer. It's like, oh, like my marketing efficiency ratio goes up. But like really it's just like, hey, if you talk to your creator more and just help them know
Yeah.
like what's working and what's not, like
Mhm.
they're gonna want to invest in you and
Yeah.
you're also gonna get better creative out of them. All right. Last question, right? When it really comes down to delivering this feedback, right? Like I know there's a lot of different ways to communicate performance. Like marketers are intuitively going to be like, hey, your hook rate on this video was like a little bit lower, right? And your
Yeah.
hold rate on this video was like a little bit lower. So maybe you should focus more time on the body or like other things like that. Um, I don't know. Intuitively, I feel like that approach isn't going to resonate with creators who might not be as like quantitative and analytical. Do you have any
Mhm.
advice for marketers when it comes to communicating this like real time feedback, to creators so they can make the most out of these training sessions?
My advice would be I still think the hook is always the most important. I think the first 3 seconds, I mean, speaking in terms of like TikTok content, is always going to be the most important. And that is actually something that we look at constantly. Um, sometimes we do give our creators hooks, and sometimes we ask them to come up with hooks on their own that feel natural and organic to them, or, sometimes we'll tell them to do things that would stop their scroll. That's what I always think about when I'm a content creator is like, okay, I'm gonna film a hook that would make me stop my scroll. So just going back to like, being relatable, that's what I would communicate with my creators. It's like film it organically, naturally, something that just feels like you and is relatable on the TikTok platform. If we're not talking about like analytics and everything, just going back to that relatability. What else would I say? Um, I think also just like sometimes people are like visual learners as well. So sometimes what we do is we'll like scroll the platform and we'll search for videos that are already performing well, and we'll have our creators maybe recreate certain pieces from content. Like we never want them to like copy and paste, but maybe there's this video that had a really great hook, and we'll tell the creator like, replicate this hook and then do something else in the body. Or we'll say, like have the exact same lighting and filming setup for this video. And we'll give them like inspo links so they have this like clear idea of like what we're looking for, as well as like also looking at videos that are already performing well. Like it's already performing well on the platform. If you replicate it, most likely it's gonna perform well again with a different creator.
Got it. No, that makes sense. I feel like those videography tips are kind of missing. Like I haven't heard people include like, hey, keep this exact lighting in your creative brief. Like, you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? Like I have looked at a lot of creative briefs and I don't see that often. So that's like a good element there. I guess last question here, when it comes to like leveraging, AI and like other technology, like how can brands, creators or agencies use tech, whether it's, Reacher or other tools, in their processes to deliver better results?
I love AI. I think it's awesome. I think there's so many ways that we can use it. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are very skeptical about it. But personally, like for me, I use ChatGPT every single day, and I actually use it to help me with either voiceovers. I'll have it like, create like some sort of like very organic script so I can like read off of it, but it still sounds like myself. It doesn't sound scripted, so sometimes I'll use like ChatGPT for that. I've actually been playing around with like creating images using AI. And I think there's things that we could do there. I don't ever want to like take away, creators' jobs, basically. But I think there's like cool ways that we can like implicate it into our creative process and into our content as well. Not sure exactly how yet, something that, still like kind of navigating. Um, but yeah, I love AI. I think it's exciting. I'm excited to see where it goes. Um, but I would love for people to not be so scared of it and kind of like think of it more as like a helping tool. I think there's a lot of ways that it could like help us as creators without like taking away our jobs or anything like that.
Love it. Great take from the creator herself. All right. Thanks so much for hopping on, Becca. Really appreciate all that you shared today and talk soon.